Welcome to another episode of the Dope Student Podcast.
Hey, Dope Students, get ready to watch another episode of the Dope Student Podcast. My name is Dania, and here are my amazing co-hosts,
Jemiah.
Noah.
Welcome to another inspiring episode of the Dope Student Podcast. Today, we're sitting down with none other than Tamir Harper, a true game changer in education, advocacy, and nonprofit leadership. A Southwest Philadelphia native and proud product of School District of Philadelphia, Tamir has made it his mission to create sustainable change for generations, from co-founding Herb Ed Incorporated as a teen to becoming a new director of development and external affairs for Philadelphia Academies Incorporated. Tamir's journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. He's a Frederick Douglass distinguished scholar and advocate for public education and a sought-after voice in the national conversation on educational reform. Join us as we dive into Tamir's incredible story, his vision for empowering Philly's youth, and how he's building bridges between education, nonprofits, and the community.
Can you share a bit about your journey for being a student in this school district of Philadelphia, of becoming a national advocate for educational reform?
Yeah, first, thanks for hosting me, and I got to take y'all on the road for whenever I'm being introduced, because y'all know how to make somebody sound important. This journey is nothing short of my community, my parents, and the village that made me who I am and who I am today. As the bio said, I'm born and raised in Southwest Philadelphia. I will never forget my, as Mayor Sherelle Parker say, my humble beginnings. My humble beginnings is from parents that grew up in the projects and dad that grew up in North Philly during the crack epidemic, and they fought for their kids to have education. And that desire to have a better education, right, going to schools with ceiling tiles that were brown, to going to a school that had metal detectors and was always on lockdown, to not even having a science teacher, to then going to a school in a different part of the city in South Philadelphia and experiencing a math, a science, and English, and getting air conditioning, to then going to the Science Leadership Academy. That empowered me to want to advocate. And I have two dope nephews who's just a few years younger. I think they're in 6th grade. They'll yell at me if they might be in 7th. That inspire me every day to keep moving forward, because they should receive the same education, if not better, than what I received, and should be having the same experiences that you all are having here, and the experiences that I will argue Philadelphia Academies is working to ensure that all of our middle and high school students have across the city of Philadelphia, and sooner or later throughout the Commonwealth.
What inspired you to co-found Herb Ed Incorporated at such a young age, and what impact has the organization had on us on urban education?
Absolutely. I co-founded Herb Ed specifically because I was sick of adults telling students how to advocate for what they believed in. There were oftentimes you would be in meetings with supposedly student organizations, but there was an adult dictating the advocacy, saying you need to go do X, Y, and Z. You need to understand it this way. And oftentimes I would be questioning why that belief was that way and would not get answers. So a good friend and I, Luke Risher, who's now the advocacy advisor actually for Herb Ed, co-founded it. Literally, I was sitting in my dad's recliner chair and watching TV during one of the breaks, and I said, I'm going to launch something that gives students the actual power of advocacy. I would argue we've had a tremendous impact. First, from when I was the executive director, we launched something called advocacy guides to make sure students understood what was happening from the state level to how to speak at a school board meeting and beyond. But one of the things that I am most proud of is the school district used to be under receivership, essentially, from the state. The state appointed a school reform commission, and there was many years of advocacy to get rid of the school reform commission and give the school back to local control. And we were one of the only youth-led, youth-run registered 501c3 organizations that were part of the coalition to figure out what does this disbandment of the School Reform Commission look like. But even more so important, I would say our impact that we can see today, and I'm proud to still see, is that we designed the process for the student board reps. So we have, now it's 3, back in the day it was 2 student board reps on the Board of Education. We designed the interview process, the qualifications process, how we vet students. We created that as the organization in partnership with Tyler Wims, who's the director of student leadership in the School District of Philadelphia. So I am proud of that impact because we're making sure students have a voice at the highest level of city education decision making, because the Board of Education makes the decision on what we do as a city in regards to traditional public and charter publics.
In your new role at Philadelphia's Academies Incorporated, how do you plan to bring creative innovation and financial investment to organization's mission?
So I would say I have an easy job, right? Because we have a phenomenal program team that deliver for over 6,800 students across the city of Philadelphia, serving over 34 students and over 300 teachers and administrators. My job is to just tell the story. And as you enter the workforce and kind of assume these kind of roles, you start to understand you can only do the job if your leader is good. And my CEO will go out and talk about Philadelphia Academies, we also call PAI, with no problems, and talk about how do we invest. We're here at Mayfair today talking to you all because we're looking at how do we invest in this workforce, in the CT, how do we invest in students having the experiences that you all have. So we are being creative, from a new logo that we just launched to our website that is going to be launched in the new year, to even reimagining our gala, which is our signature event that happens on April 5th, to even how we go out and talk to policymakers and leaders like Chief Dr. Carrera on how do we do all of this work together as one city. And I'm still in a lot of the mayor's lines, one city, a united city, right? How do we say one Philadelphia? How do we make sure PAI is a leading conversation? How do we do K-12 workforce development? How do we ensure that we are talking about how we are coaching assistant principals and ensuring that they are using data to ensure students are able to graduate on time? Because what we can say is data don't lie. And how do we tell that story? And that's my job. I get to just tell the story and talk to dope people like y'all to make sure y'all know about Philadelphia Academies and beyond.
You spoke out about the importance of addressing the school to prison pipeline. What steps can schools take to break this cycle?
I'm gonna push myself and say this is now a society to prison pipeline. I will argue the case that we cannot blame students going on the trajectory of not reaching their fullest potential based only on schools. It takes a village to raise a child, as the African proverb would say. So I blame the society, the systems in place. I think schools can be creative with how do we do discipline, right? How do we not focus on punitive, but how do we focus on accomplishments and highlighting? How do we make classrooms like this where a teacher can literally allow you to just be your unique selves and build something with your creative brain and also learning something, right? I would also say I think it takes a city that thinks outside of the box. So how do we make sure students have experiences outside of school? And how do we make sure they're having them in school? And I think when I'm looking at the city, from Chief Carrera launching extended day, extended year, from PAI having an after-school program or out-of-school time activity in cybersecurity, those are how we actually break down society to prison pipeline, because it's not just on a school. It is on society to address the root cause issues that are forcing, as Dr. Davis, I believe his name is, that used to run Obama's Center for Black Student Equity or something along that long acronym, would say, how do we support the babies and making sure that they have every opportunity to succeed? And PAI is doing it, and I believe we have a city under Mayor Sherrell Parker that's doing it, and we have a state legislature that's pushing it under Speaker Joanna McClinton.
How does your background in public relations and education policy help shape your advocacy work and strategic approach?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that one before. I would say it is the understanding of how to communicate with publics. We call people publics. Different stakeholders are public. So how do we communicate with different people? The story is still the same. The importance part are still emphasized, but how I communicate it with you may be differently. If I am meeting with a number of city council members, I'm going to talk about how we're impacting their district specifically. If we're meeting with the mayor, we're going to talk about how we're impacting the city in itself. So I think that strategic idea and also understanding from a student, then an advocate, and then being a teacher, and now being on the back end of a nonprofit helps me also understand the landscape of education across the city of Philadelphia.
What do you see as the biggest challenge facing urban education today?
Oof.
How can students and educators work together to overcome them?
Now that's a question. The biggest problem in education. Commitment. I think that's the biggest problem. I don't believe that we as a society have a commitment to address the deep-rooted issues of education, from student experiences like you all are having to the experiences of buildings, of like how do we actually build buildings that work for kids, to how do we make sure we're engaging families, right? I think that's our problem. We have a lack of commitment, and I think we as a city are starting to go in the right direction, though, with that level of commitment of bringing private, public, and government entities together, right? I talk about PAI. We have amazing relationships with private folks and now government folks, and we're building it to ensure that we're all able to work together to support kids in Philadelphia.
As someone deeply involved in nonprofit leadership, what advice would you give young people who want to make an impact in their communities?
Stay mission driven. Oftentimes you can derail yourself because you are chasing that opportunity, and you forget about your why and your mission. Remember that why. This is not for me. Yes, I hope to not be poor all my life. I want to live a comfortable lifestyle.
How do you
But
balance?
this is beyond me. No, go ahead. This is beyond me.
I have a question.
Oh,
Why is there
double
only
hit.
why is there only funding and trade programs for 18 on up?
Ooh. Now that's a question. I would argue that I'm not going to give you a political answer that I can give you. One, I don't know, but I will say this: I think we have the right chief education officer. We have the right mayor. I have the right president and CEO of Philadelphia Academies. I think we have the right Speaker of the House. I think we have the right governor in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, where I think we need students like you all to go to the Capitol, to go to City Hall, to go to budget hearings, and make it clear that we can't keep saying 18 plus, because 18 plus is too late. If I may not be in student loan debt if I had this in middle school. So the true answer, I don't know. But here's what I'm willing to commit: that we're willing to support you all on that advocacy and put our feet where our mouths is, our money and our hands where our mouths is, to make sure that changes throughout the city, throughout the Commonwealth, and if we can, maybe in about 5 years, throughout the United States.
How do you balance pursuing your doctorate, working in nonprofit leadership, and maintaining your role as a community advocate?
Y'all did some research. I have an amazing partner who gives me grace, a lot of grace. While she's even in law school, she is always figuring out how do we balance our lives. I have an amazing employer. It is very hard, and I've been in toxic employment situations, but I have an employer that understands the balance of life, that I am trying to better myself and improve my education so that I can continue to be better in the workplace. So, and my partner, my employer, my mentors, my therapists, and most importantly, I'll probably say family. They give me that opportunity, and I balance it by also being mission driven. This is above me. This is beyond me. This is not for me. Yes, I'll be doctor, but this is for the hood. This is for going back to 61st and Grays in between Woodland and Elmwood Avenue to say, I'm doing this, you can do this, and look beyond everyone else that's not doing it to show an opportunity for others.
What's one moment in your career that stands out as a turning point or proudest achievement?
In my career, teaching 8th graders. I taught 8th grade students English, writing, and social studies, and I will always say that was my favorite job that I probably will ever have. But I say that in a sense that not only did I enjoy it, not only did we have some cool and creative conversations, but at the end of the day, when the principal looks at your results, they want to see some data changes. I can comfortably say my students increased 30% on state testing after I had them with me. I'm excited about that because oftentimes there's this perception we can't move students. We can't help them grow in education, especially with English. They say if you don't know how to read by third grade, pretty much a lost cause. I believe we can do that. And that's my proudest moment, that I had my students committed and they trusted me enough. I got their trust to go on that education journey together as a first-year teacher. So we making mistakes together in that classroom, but they stayed the course and rode the wave with me.
What's your vision for the future of education in Philadelphia? And how can we all contribute to making it reality?
I was 14 and then Superintendent Height invited me to come speak to all of the assistant superintendents and principals of the school district of Philadelphia. And our statement was that we wanted every kid or every scholar, every teacher, regardless of their zip code, to have opportunity, to have equal education, for equity across the system. That's my vision, that we can have a system that educates every student regardless of their zip code. And how do we do it? We hold their feet to the fire. If we have people that are not committed to supporting education, to investing in not just 18-plus workforce development and CTE work, they get on board or get off board. And that means we got to mobilize sometimes to maybe get them out of office. That may be we got to go and talk to them. If they cannot get in or get on board with the vision, then they got to go. And I would argue when we talk about a vision for education, every entity has to come together, and I think we're going in that direction. But for those who don't want to get on board, it's time for them to give up their seat and their power, because it's now time to elevate students and educators to advocate for what they believe in and show what we need.
Thank you, Tamir, for sharing your story today. To our listeners that are listening today, we hope any of this information that was shared today with us today impact on your future. And that's it for this episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Dope Student Podcast. Stay curious and stay dope, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.